And we are live. Good morning. Welcome to the Soul Words house. Just a half a block from the aisle. Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. We have a nice crowd here. See, we're starting to form regulars who come here. You come here for the bagels, or you come for the learning? Come for the learning, stay for the bagels. The coffee. We have the beautiful Keurig machine. I prefer the Kirkland. What? We have hot cocoa. Can you bring the hot cocoa here just so we can show everybody that we really have hot cocoa? We have hot cocoa, and some of our students are actually consuming some of this hot cocoa right now. And it creates, the sweetness creates positive emotional associations with Torah study. That's why when a little boy starts, the Hachnasa Lecheder ceremony, when you bring him to study Aleph Beis and you put honey on the Aleph Beis chart. Okay, this week we have in Likkutei Sichos Parshas Vayeishev. If you look, you'll actually see it says Vayeishev Chanukah. You see that? You can pull it up, yeah. It says Vayeishev, and then underneath Chanukah. Yeah, you want to maybe pull it up just like this so people can see more clearly. Vayeishev Chanukah. Because what we have here is two Vayeishev Sichos, two Parsha-related Sichos, and then we have a Chanukah Sicha. Now, also, next week in Parshas Miketz, we also have Chanukah. I'll show you that too. See, Parshas Miketz, next week, it says Miketz, and it also says, it says Shabbos Chanukah. So we're going to have what? You're pulling it up? What happened? Now everything's black. So this week and next week, we have Chanukah-related stuff. It's not really working. This week and next week, we have Chanukah-related stuff along with the Parsha. Today is Yud Zayin Kislev, and next week is Chav Gimel. No, is that right? No, Chav Daled. Kislev. Very good. Okay, so you see there, Parshas Vayeishev Chanukah. Okay. Because of the way the calendar is this year in Tafshin Pei Vav, basically we're going to do both of the Chanukah sections of Likkutei Sichos Chelik Aleph before Chanukah even begins, which I guess is fine because we'll be ready ahead of time. Okay, are we ready? Shall we begin? Okay, Parshas Miketz Shabbos Chanukah Aleph. We're going to pull up the. Okay, you have to do it so big like that. Can you do it like the screen in screen? Yeah, I like that better. Okay. There you go. I like that. Yeah, okay. Fine. In Unhaib von Parshas Miketz. And we want to thank, by the way, Kahos Publication Society for providing us with these PDFs. Now you can leave it on because I'm talking about it. Do you have the Sichos in English, by the way? Because I also just want to give a shout out to Sichos in English. Every week, Sichos in English provides us with their version of the Sicha, and we always post it in the description. Someone was asking me where to find these Sichos in English. I said, where do you find it? Right below the video player, there's a description, and you can click on it every single week. And the Likkutei Sichos, the Sichos in English version of Likkutei Sichos has a lot of cool stuff in it. It's not just a translation. Of course, that's one of the advantages, but there's a lot of explanatory footnotes and insights that enrich ones. Yeah, there you go. Likkutei Sichos. Very good. Yeah, let's just take a look at that. Nice little intro. Go back a little bit. You have a nice little intro, and then you have the translations, and it fills in a little bit, gives you like some background sometimes. It's a very nice resource, very helpful, and it enriches your experience. Anyways, those are all downloadable, clickable, right under the video. Okay. In Unhaib von Parshas Miketz. No, now I'm looking at Miketz. Sorry. Auf in Pasuk Vayeishev Yaakov. Okay. And if you're in the real Likkutei Sichos, you're on page 76. Often Pasuk Vayeishev Yaakov be'eretz Megurei Aviv be'eretz Canaan Taishtem Ezrat Maggid. On the verse, the opening verse of Parshas Vayeishev, which says, Yaakov dwelled, Vayeishev Yaakov dwelled, be'eretz, in the land, Megurei Aviv, in the land that his father dwelled in, which is be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. Taishtem Ezrat Maggid, so the Maggid, the Mezritch Maggid, the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, and the Rebbe of the Alter Rebbe, taught. Vayeishev Yaakov. What does that mean, Vayeishev Yaakov? As Yaakov is given eingesessen b'yeshiva v'akava, that Yaakov settled, so to speak, ba'aretz, in erdishkeit, in physicality, earthliness. We've been speaking about this a lot, by the way, as a theme in Likkutei Sichos Chelik Aleph, about the importance of physicality and channeling physicality to become a tool to serve Hashem. We spoke about Yaakov also in terms of, specifically Yaakov in terms of Avedas Habirurim, being involved in the physical world to refine it. We spoke about that last week. We're going to speak about that more today. Zulib vas hater esketon. What did he do it for? Bichdei tzenoif kleiben, in order to gather migurei. What's migurei? Migurei is the place of sojourning of his father, but here we say meloshin oiger kayetz, harvest, the summer harvest. Die Netzutzes hakdusha welche gefinden sich in die Gashmis der Gesachen und sie der Heuben zu Aviv shebeshmaim. So Megurei Aviv means Megurei, instead of dwelling or sojourning, it's meloshin oiger kayetz, which means harvesting, and Aviv means not his father's literal biological father, but it means Aviv shebeshmaim, his father in heaven, meaning Hashem. So Yaakov settled into the aretz, to the erdishkeit, the physicality. For what purpose? Megurei Aviv, to harvest sparks, energy, lofty spiritual energy that's embedded in the physical world, which we call Avedas Habirurim, the disencumbering of the sparks. He to disencumber those sparks and elevate them and return them to Aviv, to his father in heaven. Okay. Unchach as yeshiva v'akava in Eretz is a yerida, and even though Yaakov's dealing with physicality was for him a descent, right? He would for sure rather be studying in the yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever, not dealing with physicality, being a shepherd and all business and all that stuff. Is as aber mer nit wie zeitweilig, but it was only temporary. Und dafke durch dem kommt man zu a tesefes v'aliyah. But only through that, exclusively through dealing with the physicality, one comes to an increase and an ascent. Und das sagt be'eretz Canaan, and that's why it says Eretz Canaan. Remember, it says Vayeishev Yaakov be'eretz Megurei Aviv, Eretz Canaan. Well, what's Eretz Canaan? Canaan. Well, what's Canaan? Canaan Maloshin. Canaan is a proper noun, but it's also a common noun. It's a name of like these nations, Canaanite nations, but also Canaan is a common noun. It's a word that has a meaning. Canaan with not a capital Chaf. Canaan Maloshin Mischar. Canaan from the language or the meaning, etymology of commerce. A Canaani can mean a merchant, like we're about to say. Like it says in Zechariah, there won't be any more merchants in the Beis Hashem. No more people selling T-shirts and keychains in front of the Beis Hamikdash. Und in Mischar führt sich, als Freier geht man aus Geld, kedei später zu verdienen. And you know, the rule in business, in commerce, is that you spend money in order to make money. Like it says in Mishlei, the Proverbs of the wisest of all men, King Solomon, that there's someone who spends money and then he gathers in more. He doesn't waste the money. He spends money to make money. He makes a net profit. So here we're talking about the spiritual profit, that sometimes you got to do a certain job in the world, get involved in the world, and it entails an expenditure of resources and energy, but there ends up being a spiritual net gain. So that's what the Canaan part there means. Okay, so that's a Torah from the Meziritch Maggid. Base. The Heirah derfun is, the Rebbe always wants to give us the Torah Meloshen Heirah, the directive, the instruction. A Yid darf nit suchen kein größe Sachen darfke. A Jew doesn't have to look for big things. You might, in your fantasies, you might imagine that what you need to do in order to serve Hashem is something earth-shattering. But actually, the most powerful thing can be something really seemingly mundane, just really normal and simple, as we're about to elaborate on. Nor seine Aveda darf sein, zu neufkleiben, mivare sein und meile sein, den Zutzes von Kedusha, welche gefindet sich in weltische Sachen. Rather, what could his Aveda be, his way of serving Hashem? Simply to refine and elevate the sparks of holiness that are in the worldly things, in his possessions. Und zu lib was darf man es tun? Aviv. And why do you do it? For whom do you do it? For Aviv, your Father in heaven. Zu lib sein Vater in Himmel. Yisrael nimshal lidveira. The Jewish people are compared to a bee. Madveira kol masha misagelas ein misagelas ela labayla. Kach Yisrael kol masha oisin hu laviyim shebeshamayim. He says it in Yiddish. Jeden seien geglichen zu a bin. Also wie a bin, als was sie nehmt rein, ist das fahren Balabas. Also eich jeden, als was sie tun, ist das für sehr Vater in Himmel. Jews are compared to a bee, because everything that the bees amass, meaning the honey, is all for the beekeeper. And the Jews go around making sweet honey for Hashem, the beekeeper. Nit kein Aveda für Almanas lekabel pras, auf zu kriegen a Belohnung. They don't serve to get a personal payoff, and this is very important, these following words. In Gashmias, other than Ruchnias, not materially or even spiritually. That's an important point. That we serve Hashem not for our personal payoff. And then the Rebbe emphasizes, and personal payoff could be a material payoff, right? If I serve Hashem, He'll answer my prayers, He'll give me what I want. That's a material payoff. Or even a ruchnistic payoff, even a spiritual payoff, which could just mean the spiritual satisfaction. Like it talks about in Tanya in chapter 10, that the Bnei Aliyah serve Hashem not to quench their spiritual thirst, but rather for Hashem's pleasure. Nor the ganze Aveda darf sein la'aviv shebishmaim, rather their entire purpose of serving Hashem is for Hashem's sake. Which is a very, very important concept and a very central concept in Chassidus in general and in the Rebbe's Torah especially. And I don't want to get into a whole sidebar over here, but the Rebbe takes the story of the Alter Rebbe who said, I don't want your paradise and your world to come. I don't want your heaven. I just want you. And the Rebbe says that's not just a story that impresses us about the incredible level of the Alter Rebbe, but it's really revealing the inner desire of every one of us, that's what we all really want. We just want Hashem. No payoffs, not material payoffs, and not even spiritual payoffs. We just want to do this for Hashem. So we're really, I said I'm not going to get into a long sidebar, but I'm going to. The Alter Rebbe, Yotes Kislev is coming in a couple of days. The Alter Rebbe wrote a sefer called Sefer Shel Beinim, and teaches you how to be a Beini. And in Perek Yod, he talks about the tzaddik, but it's just one Perek, because really the point of the sefer is not the tzaddik, it's the Beinini. But, he just has to tell you where the parameters are. So he tells you about the tzaddik in Perek Yod. Just like he tells you about the Rasha in Perek Yod Aleph. Doesn't mean, you're supposed to become a Rasha, God forbid. Just means you should know what the extremes are. And then the rest of the whole sefer, starting from Yod Beis, is all about the Beinini. But I say that a lot of what the Rebbe teaches, if you would just learn Tanya, if you would learn Tanya from the Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, and then you would be transported to our day and age and start learning the Rebbe's Torah, you would think the Rebbe is teaching how to be a tzaddik. A lot of the stuff that Rebbe says, and he says it like shavuot l'chol nefesh, like this is for all of us, it's for every one of us, because it's our deepest desire, it's the panemius of every Jew, are things that if you would learn Tanya without the Rebbe's explanations, you would think this is certainly not talking about a regular person. So like, Lamashal, here, this is not just something that's the domain of a tzaddik. This is, in Perek Yud, it talks about two levels of tzaddikim: tzaddik v'tevel, tzaddik v'raloi, tzaddik v'tevel, tzaddik gomer, also called b'nei aliyah, and it like impresses upon you this is such a rare level, and very few people are at this level. And quotes the Zohar that says very few people are at this level. And what is this level? They're called b'nei aliyah because for two reasons. It says there's two reasons, and they go hand in hand. They're oila b'konei echad, that they serve Hashem for the sake of halos man, to elevate the mein nukvin, which basically means to take physicality and elevate it, and that everything they do. That's one reason they're called b'nei aliyah, because aliyah maloshin ascent, elevation. They elevate the physicality, and then the other reason is because everything they do for the sake of the Most High, meaning they don't do it for their own spiritual satisfaction, but they do it for Hashem. Aveda l'tzedek gevaya, serving Hashem for His own sake, which is a fundamental concept. I mean, it doesn't originate in Chassidus. It's definitely very much explicitly and at length described in Chassidus. The Shalah speaks about the Aveda l'tzedek gevaya, serving Hashem for Hashem's sake, not for our own sake. And really, it's a Mishnah like the Rebbe quoted here, the Mishnah from Oves, to serve Hashem le'amanas l'kabel pras, not to receive a reward, but rather we do it for its own sake. And there are different explanations. What does it mean? Torah mitzvahs l'shma, but one explanation, l'shma, means for Hashem's satisfaction. At any rate, so the b'nei aliyah, they're called b'nei aliyah for two reasons. One is they elevate the gashmias, and the other reason is because everything they do for Hashem's sake. And then he says, and those are really two sides of the same coin, because what does it mean to do it for Hashem's sake? To give Hashem nachas. What gives Hashem nachas? Dealing with the gashmias and transforming it, making dark into light. But there it's talking about b'nei aliyah, not just tzaddikim, but like the highest, rarest level of tzaddikim. And over here, the Rebbe is basically speaking about it like this is regular, basic Yiddishkeit. So, yeah. Why is there no Eskimo? Is that true? Maybe in honor of the dreidel? I don't know. What is Gimel if you get the Gimel on the... you got everything? Maybe it's to humble us that we shouldn't... I don't know. You're right. I don't see Gimel. At any rate, so here's this idea of gathering the sparks that are in the physicality and doing it for the sake of Hashem, not for our personal gain, not even our spiritual gain. Bichdei zu peilen bei sich, as in der Aveda sollen sich nicht reinhaben kein Pnius, and in order to make sure that no ulterior motive will creep in, is das durch Aveda in Pashte in Yonim Dafke. That's by doing the Aveda in simple things. Simple. Keep it simple. Beshas hat zu tun mit der Hebene in Yonim von Avonavas Saga, when he's dealing with elevated things, and the Rebbe defines what elevated means. Havana Saga, brain work, stuff that you understand. Dorten können sich hereinhaben Pnius, then ulterior motives can creep in. Bichdei as seine Veda soll seine reine, but in order that your Veda should be clean, meaning the motives should be clean, on Pnius, without ulterior motives, is das durch Veda pshuta in inyan pshutim. That's by Dafka. That's by specifically serving in a simple way with simple things. In other words, obviously we are thinking people and we use our brains, and we're using our brains right now to learn. We're learning right now because we use our brains. But we're extolling the virtue of keeping the Aveda simple. In other words, don't get so philosophical. Just get the job done. Don't analyze everything so deeply. Just get it done. And get it done means get it done. The simple stuff. Do the mitzvahs. Put one foot in front of the other and do the next right thing in front of you. It doesn't have to be something glorious or newsworthy. Just simple mitzvahs that are actions in this world. Und so wie der Rabbi Prerequisite Admor hat gesagt, as die Pshitos von Anashim Pshutim verbindet sich mit Pshitos o Atzmos. Like the Frierdiker Rebbe said, that the simplicity of the simple Jews is connected to the simplicity of Hashem's essence. So the Rebbe adds to that concept and says, similarly, the Pshitos von Aveda in Inyan Pshutim verbindet sich mit Pshitos o Atzmos. The simplicity of a simple Aveda is connected to the simplicity of Hashem's essence. Und das ist die Meile von Kabbalas Ol. The Rebbe is spelling it out now. This is the virtue of acceptance of the yoke of heaven. Discipline. Was zu lieb dem werden angerufen Yidden b'shem Tzivos Hashem. And that's why the Yidden are called Hashem's army. Tzivos Hashem, what started in 1981, but this Sicha is actually from Tafshin Tes Vav, the winter of 1954. Not Tafshin Tes Vav, Tafshin Toiv, which means the winter of 1956. Yeah, it's actually from Shabbos Parshas Vayeishev Chaf Kislev. So this is 30 years. Almost 30 years before Tzivos Hashem. But Tzivos Hashem really, like Shimi Weinbaum pointed out to me from Tzivos Hashem, he said, when did Tzivos Hashem start? And of course I fell into the trap. I said, I don't know, Tafshin Mem Aleph. And he says, no, when the Yidden came out of Mitzrayim, because that's where it says, Tzivos Hashem. Okay, so Tzivos Hashem is a very old concept. That's why Yidden are called Tzivos Hashem, Hashem's army. Dem Eibishtens Armeien, warum der Inyan von Zelener is Kabbalas Ol. Because the concept of a soldier is Kabbalas Ol, acceptance of the yoke of heaven. And that's really the main thing. Und das ist der Pshat Vayeishev Yaakov eretz Maguri Aviv. And that's what it means. Yaakov dwelt in the land of his father, as bichtei zukommen zum Aviv. As ein ganzer Aveda soll sein, nor far Aviv shebeshamayim. Then in order that Yaakov should reach that level, where his entire service Hashem was for the sake of Hashem. You understand? Not to be a user where you understand that Hashem is the big ATM, so you got to sort of flatter him and make him like you. Rebbe speaks about this. I mentioned the mice of the Alter Rebbe. Ich will mir nicht das dich allein. So one of the places of many where the Rebbe talks about that story is in the Maimer, which is the Rebbe's birthday Maimer of Yudaf Nissen, b'yimash de'asa yem nasi lifnei asher, and the Rebbe speaks about over there that Aveda Zara is predicated on the idea of doing what is most expedient for you. So if you can get better customer service from the mamutza, so you serve the mamutza, Rahman al-Islam. But anon nasiv malka, I will serve the king, means that even if you'll get less customer service, you'd rather the connection to the king. So what we're saying is, and if you want to come to this level where you're serving Hashem not because of what it's going to do for you, meaning not to be a user, basically, that's what we're talking about, being a user of Hashem. Meaning don't be a user of Hashem. Rather be a servant of Hashem. Serve Hashem. Don't tell Hashem to be your butler and serve you. You serve him. But in order to come to that level where it's for Aviv Shebeshamayim, is das durch Eretz Megure Dafke. That's by getting involved in how the Maggid teaches those words, Eretz Megure, which means dealing with physicality. Durch Aveda Pshuta, which the Rebbe calls simple Aveda. On Chochmais and on Pshetelach, without smart ideas. Was demolt verlieren sich alle Pnies und man verbindet sich mit Aviv. Then, if you keep it simple, then you get rid of all the ulterior motives and you connect yourself to your Father, meaning to Hashem. So don't try to be so fancy, just keep it simple and do mitzvahs. Und das ist die Anweisung von Yaakov Avinu, and this is the teaching, the instruction that we get from Yaakov. Yaakov HaKatan in Avedas HaBirurim, Yaakov was involved in refining the sparks. Is gegangen kein Charan, and where did he go? He went to Charan, which we know was a nasty place. Und gearbeitet mit sein Lavan, and what did he do there? He worked with Lavan's sheep. Und go starke Horvet, and he worked hard, he toiled. Also wie es steht, like it says, B'yemach alonich choyre v'kerech v'layla v'tidad shenasim einai. And then I was consumed by heat in the day and cold at night, and I didn't get any sleep. Und äußer Horavanye is given in dem euch Zar von Guf. And in addition, aside from the toil, there was pain, physical pain involved. Was von dem bringt der alte Rebbe a Raya, als Gott, ein Mensch flipped the page, hat nicht kein Schum Recht über sein eigenem Körper. The alte Rebbe brings from Yaakov Avinu a proof that although a person is not the boss of his own body, meaning you cannot tell someone, punch me and I forgive you, because it's me, it's my body, and I can forgive you. No, it's not your body. It's Hashem's body. You're not allowed to tell someone they can hurt your body. Okay, so schlagen und peinigen. You're not allowed to tell someone to hurt you or to pain you. Weil der Körper gehört nicht zu ihm, nur zum Eibischen, because your body is not yours. Your body belongs to Hashem. Aber von deswegen letztendlich, nevertheless, if there's a need, das heißt, zu lieb Geld, for money, Arnusa, was in Ruchnius is das der Inyan von Avedas Abirurim, but what are we really talking about here? We're talking about Avedas Abirurim. Yeah, you can be cynical, and because people are cynical, I'm going to stop and explain that. Megman, you're allowed. Okay, let me explain. So you're going to say, oh, of course, for money, yeah, can we get in a hat there? Of course, for money, you could always find a way. No. What we're talking about is this. Money here is symbolic, not just symbolic, it's actually directly representative of the idea of working in the physical world. And the purpose of working in the physical world, like we said, is to refine the physical, to uplift it, to enlist mundane things, what we call klipas noiga, and use it for what we call kedusha, to elevate it. So we're allowed, it's a chiddush, but we're allowed to willingly undergo risk to physical injury for the sake of being involved of Avedas Habirurim, of the refinement of the physical, precisely because it is so important to Hashem. So for Hashem, we do it. We do it for Hashem. Okay. Chotch Yaakov hat gekent teinen. Now Yaakov could have argued, noch was soll ich gehen in Choron? Why should I go to Choron? It's a terrible place. Emes Takes Yaakov mit Esav and können nicht sein zusammen. True, Yaakov and Esav can't be together at that point in the narrative because they were, I was going to say they were fighting, but that's like a CNN title. No, they were not fighting. Esav wanted to kill Yaakov. That's more accurate. Aber mit dem hat man doch Esav gekannt wegschicken von Beersheva kein Choron und Yaakov soll bleiben in Beersheva bebeis Midrash shel Shem ve'ever. At least in theory, like let Esav be the one who leaves, and Yaakov can stay and continue learning in yeshiva. At least in theory. Aber Yaakov hat kein Kashas nicht gefragt. But Yaakov didn't say that. He didn't say, Hashem, why should I be the one who leaves? And why do I have to go to a disgusting place like Choron? No, he didn't ask that. Und gegangen ton seine Aveda in Avedas Habirurim b'derech Kabbalas Ol. He went and he did his job of elevating the sparks, and he did it with a sense of discipline. Und agam hat das getan mit Kabbalas Ol, hat das getan mit der Chayus und der Simcha. And even though, see, it's not a stira, Kabbalas Ol and Chayas and Simcha. Even though he did it with Kabbalas Ol, meaning accepting the yoke of heaven, he also did it with vitality and with joy. It's not a contradiction. You think, oh, because it's discipline, I'm just kind of dragging my feet. No, you can do both. You can do it with discipline, with submitting yourself to the will of God, and at the same time, you can do it with excitement and joy. Like it says, and Yaakov lifted his feet. He was like floating. He was so happy. Und durch dem ist nicht nur, was bei ihm ist nicht gewinnt, kein Jerida, nur Ader, aber mit Tasse Schleima, mit allen Injanen, was hat von dorten mitgenommen. And not only did he not suffer a descent in his spiritual quality, but he actually achieved an incredible spiritual accomplishment, which was mitase shlema, that he raised a spiritually thriving family. Und das meint be'eretz Canaan meloshin mischar. And that's what it means in the land of Canaan. She said Canaan is a merchant, and merchants make money. You don't go into business not to make money. So what does it mean, making money? As hat von dem verdient, warum hat mevargeven alle Nutzitzes bei Lovenen und euch bei Eisven. It means he made a profit. What does it mean, a profit? A spiritual profit, that he collected all of the sparks that were sitting by Loven and also the sparks that were sitting by Esav. Biz as durch hamshachas hamakif. Now we're getting into Kabbalistic technical terms, but he drew down the makif, the transcendent light that's so lofty it cannot be internalized. Was hat mamshach gewen auf Esav hat gepeilt as Vishakeu. And he affected Yosef in such a way that Yosef actually kissed him and hat him gekusht mit dem ganzen Herzen, at least according to one explanation, he sincerely kissed him. Und euch meint Canaan. So Canaan also, so at any rate, Yosef's change of heart was a direct result of his reaction, Esau's reaction to the incredible spiritual lights that Yaakov was managed to draw down through being involved in elevating the physical. Und euch meint Canaan. Another thing Canaan means, mischer begashmias, literally business. As is reich geworden mit der Größe Ashiris. He literally became wealthy. A sach mer v'frei, a lot more than previously. In other words, and we spoke about this in Parshas Vayeishev, that, Yaakov is like the image of this like immigrant who he's not really savvy, and he doesn't know the customs of the land, and he just sort of stays true to his tradition, and yet he's not some rube. He actually ends up being incredibly successful. He ends up like successful the way the world determines what's successful, meaning he makes a lot of money. Spoke about it on Parshas Vayeishev in this sefer. So Yaakov Avinu, he did business, the real business, which is, when I say real business, I mean Avodas HaBirudim, elevating sparks, and he also did business like the conventional definition of business, which is literal business, and he did it really well, and he made a lot of money. And the point is that these two things go together. They're not mutually exclusive. Serving Hashem for Hashem's sake and being materially successful are not mutually exclusive at all. In fact, they're very much aligned with each other. Daled. Und das is an Anweisung zu jeder Yidden, as durch dem Vayeishev Yaakov is be'eretz Canaan. And this is a teaching for every Jew, that by dwelling in the land of the sojourning of his father, which, as the Maggid typed it out, means by getting involved in gathering the sparks of the physical world, it ends up being an Eretz Canaan. It ends up making a profit. Or like we said before in the pasuk from Mishli, Yesh mefaz v'nei sefoid, there's someone who spends money and makes more. You lay out a certain amount of money, you invest, it takes money to make money, and then you end up making more. Durch ein Pizer v'yerida, by the outlay of expenses, which we call the yerida, the descent, meaning forcing yourself to deal with physicality as a descent. Verdient sein Parnasa in Ruchnias, but you end up making your spiritual livelihood. Und sein Parnasa begashmias, and JFYI, side point, your literal physical Parnasa as well ends up working out pretty well. Bisman peilt der noch until you come to a level where Yaakov came to when he finished this whole situation, and he told Esav, "Yeah, I'll meet you at Seir. I'll meet you at Mount Seir." And we're going to explain what that means. Because serving Hashem with, again, that paradox of Kabbalas Ol and Chayas, acceptance of the yoke of heaven, and excitement, vitality. And that reaches all the way to the depths of the soul. And that brings about a personal redemption. And that's what it means. When Yaakov tells Esav, I'll meet you at Har Seir, that is a reference to Mashiach. So doing this work, this simple work of Kabbalas Ol with Simcha in dealing with mundane physical things and elevating them, that is what brings the personal geula. Which then, that ultimately brings us closer to the macrocosmic geula. Like it says, this is actually the Haftorah from last week from Parshas Vayeishev, from the Sefer Vayeishev, and saviors will ascend to Mount Zion and judge the mountain of Esau, which is referring to Mashiach. Okay, that was the first Sicha. Baruch Hashem. As I mentioned, that was from Parshas Vayeishev, Chav Kislev, Tavshin Toiv, which means Tavshin Yod Zayin, winter of 1956. Okay, let me take a breath, and we'll start the next Sicha. Okay, I have two coffees here. They're really the same. One is from my house and one is from here. I want to thank Yisrael for sending me the picture on my WhatsApp that you fed the cat. He's still here? Okay. He's not our cat. We don't own any cats. You want to see the cat? Okay. Walk quietly because he's very skittish. Okay. Walk quietly over to the kitchen and you can see him eating. He's a stray cat. There are stray cats in the neighborhood who hang around here, and we put out food for them because it's an act of kindness and compassion to God's creatures. Well, it's a simple act. Yes, that's correct. Okay, did you see it? Can you see the cat? It ran away? Take a chair and just sit in the kitchen, and it'll eventually come back, probably. Okay. So you want to post the picture of the cat? Yeah, so people can see. Are you able to post it? Let's see. There. Probably a health code violation. It was in the kitchen. It's okay. And now by the way, so the people who don't like the cats are going to harass us. Why are you feeding a cat? The people who do like the cats are like, why didn't you put the food on a plate? Whenever I post the cat pictures on the Instagram, people are like, why didn't you put it on a plate? You're making it stick its snout in that little can. Can't win. Can't win. Okay. I don't use Grok to do the time codes. I use Gemini, which is the lamest of all AIs, but because it's the Google AI, and it's the only AI that can read YouTube videos. So after we shoot these videos, I put them into Gemini, and I say, give me the time codes, and it's 80% correct. I have to manually check all of them, but it saves me some amount of effort. Okay, page 78, Ois Hay. Second Sicha, also Parsha related. In Parshas Vayeishev, der zählt die Torah wegen Yosef Tzadik, as is given Yifei Torah Yifei Mare. Parshas Vayeishev tells us about Yosef Tzadik. Now we're transitioning to Yosef. This is the first Sicha in Chelik Aleph about Yosef. I've been speaking about Yankov till now. Yosef was Yifei Torah Yifei Mara. He was beautiful of appearance and form. Und hat Mesalsel given Besairai, and he would curl his hair. Mitzad dem is Vitisa Eshes Adainav Goymer, and his master's wife set her eyes upon him, meaning Eshes Potifar. She noticed him. She wanted him. Men hat reingesetzt in Tvisa, and he ended up getting put in prison. You guys know the story. She falsely accused him. She was the instigator. She was the predator, and then she got caught, so she flipped it on him, and he was just this slave boy who had no clout, so he got thrown in prison. Und euch sein dick dorten is asher hu eise Hashem matzliach. And even in prison, though, he had this magic touch. Everything that he did was successful because he was a smart Jewish boy. Even when he was in prison, they made him basically the honorary warden, and he was running the prison, and everything was successful. In dem Siper seine Verein zwei Teil. Now, there's two parts to this story, two components to this story. Aleph benegei Yosef as is given yefei toya v'fei mare. One aspect of it is Yosef's beauty. Beis, another aspect of this story is benegei Eshes Potifar, is about the wife of Potifar. Her role in it. So there's his role, and there's her role. Beide tellen seinen, also wie alle in jener von Teure, ewige Anweisungen von für unser Führung in tagtäglichen Leben. And both aspects of this story, like everything in Torah, are eternal directives for us in our day-to-day lives. Again, this is one of the motifs in the Rebbe's Torah in general, especially in Likkutei Sichos Chelik Aleph. Everything in Torah has to be practical and instructive and applicable and personal. Okay. Vav. Of Yosefin steht, Yosef Hashem li ben Acher. Regarding Yosef, it says, Hashem shall increase for me another son. Who said this? Rachel said this when she gave birth to Yosef. She named him Yosef because right when she had Yosef, she prayed for another son, which she did manage to have. She had Binyamin. So the Tzemach Tzedek explains, what does that mean? As Yosef's Aveda is bestanden zu machen an Acher, a Fremden, for a Bein. Das heißt machen Bali Tshuva. The Tzemach Tzedek explains the Aveda of Yosef is what? Yosef Hashem li bein acher, to take from an acher. Acher means an estranged person. You know, when Elisha ben Avuya, unfortunately, when he left the fold, he became known as acher. So acher means an estranged person, someone who's not living the way that a Jew should live. To take this acher and make him into a ben, into a son. In other words, the idea of influencing others to return to Hashem. So Yosef, the Tzemach Tzedek explains, is the Aveda of turning an acher into a bein, turning an estranged person into a son of Hashem. Dem koyach of dem had Yosef gehad, while allein is given yefei toya v'yefei mare. And Yosef had the ability to inspire people to return to Hashem because he was beautiful of form and structure. Yosef allein is given shein in alle inyanim. He himself was beautiful in all matters. Sei in mitzvahs essay, sei in mitzvahs lesese, wie es wird declared in Fila Erter, as teuer is der inyan von mitzvahs essay und mare mitzvahs lesese. What do you think? We're just talking about physicality? Yeah, we're also talking about physicality, but that's really like secondary. The main thing is ifei mare v'ifei teuer is talking about positive and negative commandments. It's explained in many places in Chassidus that Toyer is mitzvahs essay and Mare is mitzvahs leisesei. So he's beautiful in all mitzvahs. Der Far hat gekent peilen euch auf andere machen von Acher bein. And that's why he was successful in influencing others who were in a state of Acher to come back to Hashem. Because he himself was beautiful in his service Hashem. Und das ist a hera zu jedereinem, and this is an instruction to every individual, was bei jedereinem meint man doch, soll dann nicht nur mit sich, nur euch mit jenem. Every individual, we demand from them, not only they should work on themselves, but they should work with others. As is bichdei zu uftan mit jenem, but if you want to accomplish with others, darf man gedenken dem klal. You have to remember the rule. Correct yourself and then correct others. Man darf allein sein, jefei tear v'fei mare, vet men kennen peulen euch auf den Zweiten. You have to be beautiful, spiritually beautiful, and intact and complete, and then you can affect others. Okay. Now that I was going to explain what this means, because it's a complex thing, which sometimes people misunderstand, and they go from one extreme to the other extreme, And there's some nuance involved here, which is required. So the Rebbe is going to clarify it for us. Men meint nit zu sagen, what we're not saying is, as man soll warten mit vernehmen sich mit der zweiten Jiden, bis man wird zukommen allein in Tachlis Hashlemus. We're not saying you should wait until you're perfect before you deal with other Jews. Because we just said, hey, you want to be like Yosef and be able to turn a acher into a bain and a strange person into a son of Hashem? You have to be you have to be spiritually beautiful yourself, and then you'll be able to influence others. But we don't mean that you have to wait until you're perfect. No. Das ist sicher nicht so. For sure not. Nicht gucken dich auf dem eigenen Matzav, muss man ton eich mit jenem und man tor nicht ablegen. Irregardless of your personal spiritual status, you have to deal with others, you have to help others, and you're not allowed to put it off. Okay, so even if you're not ready, you got to do it anyways. Aber von der zweiten Seite, but on the other hand, from the other side, darf man gedenken, als man muss ton mit sich. But you don't forget, you have to deal with yourself. Verrichten die eigene Geseins. You have to deal with your own lacks, your own character defects. Und das, der verrichten die eigene Gesreines, is again nicht nur zu sich allein, nor euch zu jenem. And this, you're fixing your own character defects, is not just a personal issue. It's not just relevant to you. It affects how you're able to help others. Because when you have deficiencies, was man tut nicht in verrichten sei, which you're not working on. In other words, I'm kind of being medaic here, but the Rebbe didn't say you have to fix it, but at least you have to have started. You have to be dealing with it. But if you have character defects that you're not dealing with, you're just ignoring, Filt das der Zweite, the other person feels that. He senses that you're not working on yourself. B'meile ken men nit ufton in dem Zweiten. Now you can't affect that other person. Das was men darf in ufton, this which you're supposed to affect him. Mendel Potiphar said at a Farbrengen that when you ask a Freie Yid to put on tefillin, it's a huge, huge leap for him. It's really out of his comfort zone, at least consciously. Obviously, in his panemius, that's what he's aligned with already. That's what he wants more than anything. But on a conscious level, it's really, really, really foreign for him, and he has to really push himself to do it. So Remendel said at a Farbrengen, he said, if you want to ask people to do something that's such a big leap for them, what are you doing that's a big leap for you? You got to think on your level, commensurate to what your comfort zone is. You know, what would that mean for you? You have to think about it. Does it mean 3 Prakim Rambam? Does it mean Shabbos Mavarchim Tilim? I'm just throwing things out there that could be a struggle. At any rate, the point is that I was saying, it's not that, I can't go on Mivtzoyim because I'm not learning Rambam yet. You got to go on Mivtzoyim anyway. But obviously, if you're not working on your own issues, that's going to be sensed by the person that you're supposed to be influencing, and you're not going to be as influential as you could. So your working on yourself is not just a personal matter. By the way, this is a motif b'chlal in the Rebbe's Torah, that nothing is truly completely personal. No man is an island. You cannot argue and say, well, it's just me. It's not true. We all affect each other, and we have responsibilities to each other. So no, your personal avodah, your working on yourself and becoming a mensch kind of does affect, not kind of, it certainly affects others. Okay. Darf man wissen, die größte Achrayes, was man hat benegea zu verrichten die eigene Gesreines. We have to know about the incredible responsibility we have to fix our deficiencies. Worum man tut nicht in dem, schadet man nicht nur sich allein, nor euch andere. Because if you don't work on yourself, you're not only damaging yourself, but someone else as well, the person that you could have been helping. Man darf legen gor große Stadles auf zu sein allein, je viel teuer, wie viel mare. You have to put in a lot of effort to become a beautiful of form and structure, or beautiful of appearance and form. Worum das handelt sich nicht wegen a Yachid, nor wegen a Rabbim, because you're not just dealing with an individual, you're dealing with a multitude. What's the multitude? I mean, if I have some personal defect, that's a multitude? No, it's my personal issue. Yeah, but listen, Mr. or Miss, you're supposed to affect the multitude. So that multitude that's waiting for you to step up and affect them is not being affected by you as much as they could be if you would fix your internal stuff. Okay. Zion, bottom of page 79. Okay, now we're flipping. We said there were two aspects to this story. One aspect is Yosef's beauty. The other aspect is Potiphar's wife. So regarding Yosef's beauty, we said that means you have to be at least working toward being the best version of yourself in order to be able to make an acher into a bain. That was one part. The other part is what we learned from Eshes Potifar. Razal der Tellen uns, as Eshes Potifar l'shem shamayim niskavna, Potifar's wife acted for the sake of heaven. Sie hat gesehen, as von ihr wollen rauskommen Kinder zu Yosef. She saw she's going to give children to Yosef. Nor, sie hat a tos gehabt, but she had made a little error. Das gewesen nicht von ihr, nor von ihr Tochter. It wasn't from her, but from her daughter. Not her biological daughter, but her adopted daughter. Who was her adopted daughter? Osnos. Very good. Excellent. Who was the biological child of Dinah. Very good. Thank you, Yisrael, for shouting it out from the back. Can you flip the page now? No, we're not behind. We're right on time. Perfect. Page 80. Okay. Okay. Zetman davon, we're on the top of page 80. Zetman davon, as es ken sein ein Inyan, was in Chetzenius ist und bepeil, ist das in ganzen erheblich von Kedusha, aber in Penimius und sein Kavanah Godlish im Shemaim auf Mesef sein und Uftan in Kedusha. So from the fact that Potiphar's wife was actually, her real intent was a good intent. You see from this that something that superficially, he says, bechitzenius and bepoil, superficially the way it presents itself, and in actuality the way it presents itself, meaning the way it's functioning, it's the opposite of Kedusha. It's the opposite of holy. But in its inner core and in the real purpose, it's actually for the sake of heaven. It's actually there to increase holiness. Now, what does that mean? Because that's a very dangerous concept. Oh, yeah, this looks like it's profane, but really it's holy. No, I know this pork sandwich looks profane, but it's really holy and it's penimius. Okay. So this is very, 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 very important we understand this. You have to be grown-ups here. We are never, ever, ever allowed to abrogate halacha. Jewish law governs our behaviors. That is not what we're talking about. This is not antinomian stuff over here. Okay? So God forbid, we're not talking about choosing to do something that is against Jewish law. Rather, what we're talking about is when we're going through an experience and the experience presents itself to us as if it were coming to undermine our ability to connect to holiness, we should understand that that experience is actually not coming to undermine our ability to connect to holiness, but the experience was designed specifically to get us closer to holiness. Not by giving into it, God forbid. Obviously, if something is forbidden, we're not allowed to do it. But by overcoming it. So you might say, well, this experience is evil. Well, the form that it's presenting itself is darkness, is evil, is whatever. But the end result will actually be that we overcome it and a net gain of positivity, of holiness is achieved. Okay? So I just want to explain that. Der Alte Rebbe redt in Tanya. The Alte Rebbe says in Tanya, in Igeres HaKodesh, Siman Chaf Hey, it's important that we say that footnote because there are two places in Tanya that I can think of, maybe there's more, where the Alter Rebbe talks about you're davening and a heathen is blabbering in your ear trying to distract you from davening. And one of them is in the Likkutei Monim Chelik Aleph Perek Chav Ches, but that's not the reference here. And the other is in Yigeres HaKodesh Siman Chav Hey, letter 25 of Yigeres HaKodesh. So that's what we're talking about here. So the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, B'shas Yid steht und davint, B'shas Meise kommt zu Maggid, and there is mevalbel. So he's trying to daven, and this wicked heathen is blabbering in his ear, trying to distract him. Darf das in empelen, as nit nor das soll nit abschwachen, nor aber das Gufa soll in sein mehr chizuk. So his response should be not only it doesn't weaken him, meaning his prayers, but it arouses him to greater focus. As soll davenen mit mehr Kavana von tiefenisch von Herzen, that he should daven with even greater Kavana, with greater intent from the depths of his heart. In Flug ist doch nicht verstandig. Ob die Kavana in dem ist meire zu sein, dem Jiden, soll davenen mit mehr Kavana. Heint, für was kommt das etwas in es Eifen, was Goy soll im Stern zu von davenen? Was das ist doch verkehrter Linien. In first glance, it's not really understood. If the purpose of it, like you're saying, is to arouse him to daven with greater intent, then why create a situation like this where this heathen is bothering him from davening? That's the opposite of the intent. Doesn't make sense. Right? Like, this is the question we ask. Hashem, you want me to serve you? So why are you giving me problems that make it harder for me to serve you? No, the pshat is, but the explanation is. As der Gei allein in sein Pnimius und Scherisch, was der Scherisch von jeder Sach, ist doch in Kedusha, weiß und fühlt, als darf etwas meistens sein in Kedusha. This wicked heathen who's bothering you from davening, deep down, what does it mean deep down? Is he conscious of it? I don't know. Maybe he's not conscious of it. But deep down, he senses that there needs to be an increase in holiness, and he's on a mission to help you accomplish that. I mean, if you would ask him if that's what he's trying to do, he'd probably say, no, I'm trying to bother him. But deep down, because the Rebbe says the shayrish of everything, the root of everything really is in Kedusha, in holiness. Nor so wie das geht durch der Vermittlung von der Goy da Lamate, was ist doch hebech Kedusha, der drückt sich das Eis in a verkehrten Neufen. But this experience, which is it's engineered to increase holiness, but it's coming through this like nudnik guy, this weird, annoying guy. So it comes in a form of like a negative experience. Aber die Gewonne Pnimis in dem is oft zu helfen und meisav sein in Kedusha. But the real intent is to increase holiness. Like we're talking about Ashes Potifar, ultimately she was trying to do a good thing. Whether she was conscious of it, she wasn't conscious of it, I'm not sure. Another word from the Maggid. By the way, we should mention, and perhaps this was the Rebbe's intent, that the Maggid's yortzeit is Yotes Kislev. The Maggid was the Baal Shem Tov's successor, and he was the Alter Rebbe's Rebbe. And obviously, Yotes Kislev is the Alter Rebbe's Yom Geula when he was freed from imprisonment, but also Yotes Kislev is the Yom Hilula, the yortzeit, the anniversary of the passing of the Maggid. So we have, this is the second vort from the Maggid we have. The first Sicha, we had a vort from the Maggid, Be'eretz Megurei Aviv, Eretz Canaan. Here we have another vort from the Maggid. Okay, so like the Maggid said, as der ganze Inyan, was Loven is noch gelaufen, noch Yankivin is given, weil es haben gedarf zukommen, noch Asius in Teira. You remember when Loven chased Yankov? So the Mezritch Shamaga says, and if you would ask Lovin, I don't think Lovin would agree to this, but the reason Lovin chased Yankov was because there needed to be more letters in the Torah. Der Far is Lavan noch gelaufen noch in Yankov. Therefore, Lavan chased after Yankov. Was der Sipur is reingeschrieben geworden in Torah, and that story is written in Torah. Und durch dem ist zugekommen a Parsha in Torah, and then a Parsha, an extra section, an extra story got added to the Torah. So that wasn't Lavan's conscious motivation. His conscious motivation was he was a control freak, a narcissist. He wanted to abuse Yankov, and he hated the fact that Yankov went out on his own. But in Panemius, Lavan was on a mission to go create a story that would then be recorded in Torah and give more letters to the Torah. Und das ist herübergeht zu alle Lamis und Estadim of Havedis Havaya. And this is a teaching to us about anything that conceals our ability to serve Hashem. Was der Emes is, wie der Inyan steht bei Pnimiusai über Shorshai. But the reality is the way it is in its Pnimius and in its Shorish. As nit, nor was is nit kein Maggid auf Kedusha, nor other, aber helft Gott zu Kedusha. Not only is this thing not antagonistic to Kedusha, but it's really helping Kedusha. Nor wie bald das geht durch Hazatzinor, but since it's coming through this particular pathway, der Far teilt sich das Eis in a Pirish Hopfchi, but it presents itself in a form that appears antithetical to what its real intent is. Aber in Panemius, but in the inner reality, is das a hilf. Und I soften Kedusha. It's really there to help holiness and to add to holiness. What's up? Just looking at the screen. Okay. Beschas, der Mensch wird sich nicht narren und nicht haben dem Tos, was der Goy hat. And when the person will not fool himself, he won't make the same mistake that the guy who's bothering, there's this annoying guy bothering him from davening. Don't make the same mistake that the annoying guy is making. Nor wird wissen, but you're supposed to know, as ein ra yered milmaila, that no evil descends from above. As is God in the dog, kein alamas vestedem, und alle in Jenabos zet seinen asiyur in Kedusha. There are no true concealments. Everything you see will assist you in coming closer to holiness. Bemele is nit nor was der helm darf in nit peulen kein Schwachheit. All you have to do is just make sure that this concealment doesn't weaken you. Not add that, to the contrary, what should happen does darf noch in empelen a tesefis kayach, that it should bring out more strength from you. B'shas wird das der Filin und abmachen bei sich a festen Beschluss mit den Emes. When you make a firm decision with truth, you make a resolution. Is fran emes werden is faren emes alle bottle. Everything is nullified before truth. Everything that is not true falls apart in the presence of truth. As werden bottle alle alamis vestedem inias vekuvim, all of the concealment falls away, all of the obstacles fall away. Warum durch dem was weis them emes, when you know the truth. What's the truth? As in yeder zach is do nitzutz elokit, that there's a godly spark in everything, even the scary stuff. When alt is a siyur and tzukadusha, and everything is really but Pnimius there to help you to get closer to holiness. When you know that truth, durch dem peilt euch in dem davar amaylim, then you actually also affect the thing that was concealing, the concealing entity. As es wird in der Wecken und Antplacken sein Nitzutz, that in that thing that was concealing, its spark should be awakened and revealed. Ubemele is euch dolamata zet sich in offen die Kavanah Hamitas. And then even down here, you'll see openly the real purpose of it. As das bringt Sof in Kedusha, that it's really supposed to bring more holiness. So when you don't fall for the deception, You don't get fooled. And you react with strength and with confidence, knowing that this whole challenge was really only supposed to bring you to a higher level, then even the concealment itself will fall away, because it'll realign itself with its true purpose, which was to bring you to a higher level, and then it will present itself even outwardly as such. Ches. Und das ist der Hera von dem Maimer Azal Eishes Potifar L'Shem Shemaim Niskavna. This is the Hera, the practical instruction from what our sages say. The Potiphar's wife was acting for the sake of heaven. I wanted to say Potiphar in English pronunciation. That's how they say it, by the way. You know that? They say Potiphar. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they say Potiphar. If you say Potifar, they wouldn't know who you're talking about. Yeah, Potiphar. Potiphar's wife. I think it's like a famous painting, like Rembrandt or something. Can you Google that? Potiphar's wife, like a famous Rembrandt. Potifar. It's spelled the same as Potifar. It's just Potifar. That's how they pronounce it, Potifar. Potifar. Potiphar's wife. Look up Rembrandt painting. I think it's a Rembrandt. Yeah, is it a Rembrandt? Well, is there such a painting? Probably not SNEA, so don't show it. Like, it doesn't say. Okay, well, maybe someone will write in. Rembrandt. That's what I said. Yeah, it was a Rembrandt. And I don't mean the toothpaste. You know, there's a smoker's toothpaste called Rembrandt. Yeah. There's also a smoker's toothpaste called Topol. Topol was the Fiddler on the Roof. Thank you. At any rate, this is the practical teaching from Potiphar's wife, acted for the sake of heaven. B'shas is da Helem v'Hester, seinen da zwei Drachim in them. When you encounter some obstacle, a concealment, there are two paths, there are two ways. Ein derech is one way. Milchoma halten mit der Sach, was is meilem. You can fight the thing that's concealing. Das heißt, and that means, men nimmt das Take on far an Emerson, Helem v'Hester, und men horvet mit alle Keches auf Milchoma haben and kegen them. You address this thing as if it's truly a real concealment, and you treat it as such, and you fight it. Die zweite Weg, but the second way, and the Rebbe says in parentheses, was sie is a geschmackere, which is much more pleasant, is, men weiß, as bepnimius is das goras yo in Tzukidusha. You know that this thing isn't really a concealment. It's really there to help you out to come closer to holiness. And when you address it like that, is men das meire megala, then you arouse and reveal as das kommt herab eich begilui. Then you make that come down here in a revealed way. The fact its true nature, you bring out its true nature, that it really isn't antagonistic. That through the seemingly, ostensibly antagonistic concealment itself, it's really an assistant or an assistance in adding to light and holiness. So two ways to respond to a challenge in life. One is to say, it's a real challenge, it's actually here to disturb me, and I've got to fight it and I got to defeat it. Okay, that's one way. Another way is to say, it's not a real concealment, it's presenting itself as a concealment for the purpose of overcoming it. So really, its entire purpose is to bring me closer to Hashem, and therefore all I have to do is really just pull the curtain back and reveal what it is, and then it'll even present itself as such. Okay, that was the end of the second Sicha, which is from Yud Tes Kislev Tavshin Chai. I think we had another Sicha earlier in Chelik Aleph from Yutes Kisel Tafshin Chai. Okay, let's take a minute to breathe. Yeah, Gemini. Yeah, Gemini AI, please. This is the end of the second Sicha. Okay. Yeah, all right. Page 81. Chanukah. You see that little thing? Right there? See that? Chanukah. 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 I heard the door. Is someone here? And I don't know. Is there someone more here? Let's see if someone more is here. Someone else came. Could be. No? Okay. Okay. 81. Okay, so we had one Sicha about Vayeishev, which is about Avodas HaBirurim and the importance of dealing with simple stuff, with Kabbalas Ol and Chayus. Then we had another Sicha about it's important to be like Yosef. If you want to affect others, you yourself have to be the best version of yourself. And then also to know that any obstacle in life is really engineered to bring you closer to Hashem. Right. Now, let's do the third Sicha. Page 81. Ois Tes. Wegen Chanukah gefinnen mir zwei gegengesetzte Inyanim. Regarding Chanukah, we find two antithetical concepts. We love paradoxes. We love seeming contradiction. Aleph, es steht in Sfarim, as Chanukah is Maloshin Chinuch, as is euch moving bepashtas Maloshin Chanukah zum Mizbech, ve Chanukah zum Beis HaMikdash, as das gewen in Anheib, man hat angeheben ton dem ewigsten Zavede in Beis HaMikdash bechlal und in Mizbech und in befragt von das Nai in innen von Chinuch. So, it's explained that Chanukah is related to the word Chinuch, which we translate as education. It really means like inauguration, the beginning usage of something, which literally is like Chanukah Mizbeach, the dedication of the altar, which in the Chanukah narrative was the rededication of the altar after it was defiled. So one meaning of Chanukah is Chinuch, which, we translate as like dedication, but it really means like how something gets started. And education, meaning like the education of a child, is how, it doesn't have to be a child, by the way. Like let's say somebody learns a new skill and they need to be initiated into that skill. So their Chinuch would be their beginning of being exposed to that area. So Chinuch means the beginning introduction of someone or something to a new usage. That's what Chanukah means. Okay, that's Aleph. That's one thing. Base. Der Nes von Chanukah is given as men hat gefunden Pach Shem and Torah Chosem bechesmei shel kein Gadol Chot shal Pidin hat men gekent madlik sein euch mit Shmonim Tmeim. The miracle of Chanukah was that we found pure oil, even though halachically we could have, under those circumstances, used ritually impure oil. Varum tuma d'chuya adar hutra b'tzibur, because regarding a communal offering, halachically, the issues of ritual impurity would have either been pushed off or even altogether released. And von deswegen, nevertheless, bichdei zu weisen chibasam shel Yisrael hat der Eibishter bewiesen an Nes. To show his special love for the Jewish people, Hashem made a miracle, an unnecessary miracle. I mean, Hashem doesn't do any unnecessary miracles, but from a certain perspective, it wasn't necessary. They could have used impure oil, but no. Hashem says, I love my people so much, I want them to use the best oil. Men soll kennen nicht nur anheuben mekayim sein in mitzvah betachlis hider. Onkena heterem, afilo nit kein ausgehaltene heterem al pi shulchan aruch. That when we were starting to light the menorah again, that we were able to do it betachlis hider in the most beautiful way, the most meticulous way, without any heterem, loopholes. I'll translate it as loopholes, although it's not really loopholes, but I use the word loophole because it's intentionally provocative. It's intentionally provocative because for some hilarious reason, tragic and hilarious, whenever I see anti-Semites online getting upset about halacha, something unnerves them about what they perceive to be as loopholes. That's a story for another time. At any rate, the point is there were legitimate loopholes that could have been relied upon in this case. It would have been okay. It didn't have to be pure oil in this case. And yet, Hashem made a miracle that we should be able to use pure oil for the entire amount of time until we were able to produce more pure oil. Okay. So remember that Rebbe said there are two antithetical or contradictory or opposite concepts in Chanukah. What are the two? You have to spell it out a little bit. You have to fill it in. The Rebbe said Chanukah means Chinuch, which means the beginning of something, like the beginning training. Chanukah is also about doing something in the best possible way, the most meticulous way. That's the seeming contradiction. Because when you're just starting off, like, doesn't have to be perfect, like, so he's a little kid, he's just a kid. You don't have to do it in the most meticulous way, it's good enough. All right, so that I was saying, that's going to be the point of that point of tension between the way you start something on one hand, and then doing it in the ultimate form on the other hand, and how those two things go together. Zet men derfun die Hera as beshas es retzich wegen der Inyan von Kedusha darf man bald in Anheib in Anfangs Chinuch as ton betachlis hashleimus betachlis hahida. So we see from this the Hera, the teaching, that when you're talking about something that deals with holiness, then right at the very beginning, from the very beginning of education, you have to do it in the ultimate perfect way. The most beautiful way. Hither means beautification. The most beautiful way. Yod. Dieselbe Sach befragt ist mit benege Chinuch abonne v'abones. Bald von Kindweis an darf man sie geben a ganze Jiddischkeit an keine Psharis und an keine Heterim. So too, when it comes to educating a child, boys and girls, from the very beginning of their childhood, you have to do everything without compromise and without loopholes. Like Shlomo Melch says, even when he grows old, he will not depart from it. Kann man nicht verlassen sich, als Bescheid wird werden älter und seinen Gas, wird man, flip the page to 82, wird man demult erzählen, als darf halten Milchama. You cannot rely on the fact, later on, when he's older and he goes out into the world and he's exposed to the street, then we'll tell him, be careful, you're going to have to fight out there. Der zählen as darf nicht nispol werden, far keine meineo ma'akiv. Tell him, don't be influenced, don't be intimidated by any obstacles. Und wie soll darf haben mesiras nefesh, and you have to have self-sacrifice for it all. But basically, you're going to shelter him and give him an easy, like really, really watered down Yiddishkeit, and then one day you're just going to set him out into the world and be like, oh, by the way, you're going to have to be really super tough and you have to like sacrifice yourself. It's not going to work. Like you're going to give the kid whiplash. Ob man will as demolt ki yazkin soll beistehen, die nisyenis darf man anheben, wenn is noch a nar. If you want that when Kiyazkin, when he gets older, he should be able to stand the tests, then you need to start when he's a nar. Chanukah lenar al pi darkei. Gam Kiyazkin, even when he gets older. So you have to start when he's just a nar, when he's just a little boy. Derfar haben doch Chachme Yisrael sich stark mistadel gewesen und gelegt gar größere Keiches auf den Chinuch von Bnei Yisrael, as soll sein Altaris HaKedesh. And that's why the Jewish sages put in a lot of effort that the education of Jewish boys and girls should be pure. Altaris HaKedesh should be done in a pure way. Men hat Milchome gehalten auf jeder Prat. A viele Pratim, was haben ausgewiesen nicht als eine wichtige, hat man gekämpft nicht noch zu geben sei. Traditionally, Jewish leadership, the Chachmei Yisrael, they fought for little things, even things that did not appear significant. But we fought not to give in over them. Weil men hat gewusst, als die Chinuch-Jahren sein Negeh dem Bacher oder der Mädel auf sein ganzes Leben, because we understood. We didn't want to compromise on any detail, even seemingly insignificant stuff, because we understood that the Chinuch-Jahren, the years of their, when their formative years, affect the young man or young woman for a lifetime. Men hat gewusst, als men darf sei mitgeben Starkheit mit Kleisaien, we knew we had to give them weapons. Sie sollen haben mit was zu abschlagen die alle Milchomes, was sie wollen haben auf sehr Lebensweg. That they should be able to fight back, fight the war, fight the good fight that they're going to have on their path in life. A mensch is geglichen zu a beim, ki ha'adam eitz hasadet. A person is compared to a tree, like we say, ki ha'adam eitz hasadet. What's the song? Adam eitz hasadet is a song? Oh, it's an Eighth Day song? Should we mention the passing through just like you? What's the Adam eitz hasadet song by Eighth Day? Come here, just. What? Yesterday at Yard Site, and Yisrael helped me to practice my chazanas so I could be a nice chazan at Chabad of the Five Towns on Shabbos. So I was able to be like, Nagdishach. Right? Yisrael, you help me? Okay, you guys really missed out if you didn't hear my chazanas on Shabbos. Yeah, and Yitzhak Tzvibecker came to shul because he heard about it. He said he was listening to the Likkutei Sichos share, and he came to shul from the yard site. Pull up the Eighth Day thing. I want to give a plug if it is. So not this Shabbos, but Shabbos Chanukah, we're going to be in Connecticut. Me and my family, Yisrael and his family, and me, my wife and kids, and the whole family. We're going to all be there at the Shabbos Chanukah getaway. Go to cretreat.com. cretreat.com. And we're going to be there for Shabbos Chanukah. And Eighth Day are the special musical guests. Did you pull it up yet? Okay. So a person is compared to a tree. What? Sponsorships? Yeah, go get it for us. Yeah. You know what? I'll give you a cut. If you can get all these people to send in a donation, I'll give you 49%. Okay. Okay. A person is compared to a tree. Oib men macht der Kritz in Baim Beshas is schon ausgewachsen, is der Kritz nur auf dem Ort, wo man macht dem. If you make a scratch in a tree, a grown tree, picture a big grown tree, you make a little scratch in the bark. The scratch is going to just stay in that one place. Und außerdem tut das nicht an kein Schaden. And it doesn't really damage the tree. It's a big tree. It's just scratching the bark. Maybe cosmetically it doesn't look so nice. It doesn't really damage the tree. Aber beschas man macht der Kritz in dem Kerndol, was man geht einpflanzen, but if you scratch the seed that you're planting, is recht as von ein Kritz, it's possible that from one scratch soll auswachsen der ganze Baum a verkrippelte, that the entire tree will grow crippled. Found it? So bring the thing. Oh, we're going to get a copyright strike. I don't need a copyright. Yeah. It's not from them. It's from their publishers. I don't need that. Okay, just do like a one note. Okay, because the YouTube copyright strikes are extremely aggressive, and I don't need that. I don't need that in my life. Okay, stop. Because whatchamacallit? The other mates Sade. Shmuley and Bensi, shout out to you. Other mates Sade. Samach te samach. What? Samach te samach. They say it like that? Okay. All right. Other mates Sade. Okay. Anyways, I want to tell you something. Ever since I was a bacher and I learned this Sicha, I always thought in my mind, I cannot imagine this mashal. I never told you this at all. What? Ever since I learned this Sicha, decades ago, I always thought to myself, look, it says in the Sicha, I know it's true, but I just can't imagine that. Like, if you scratch a seed, it'll make the whole tree messed up. Maybe a sapling. If you mess with a sapling, then it could affect the way the whole tree grows. But when it's a seed, it falls apart anyway. I mean, that's a mashal and chassidus all the time, that the seed falls apart. All right, so I'm going to tell you something. I checked it out last night. I researched it last night. And it depends on what kind of seed it is. So the Rebbe said it's possible, right? The Rebbe said, is recht, as von ein Kritz soll auswachsen, der ganze Baum a verkrippelte. It's possible. It says that avocado pits, if they are scratched, avocado farmers will not plant them because the tree will be messed up. Also, mango pits. Basically, it's like seeds that are like big, stony pits. Apparently, like thin-skinned seeds, like imagine like a cucumber seed or something, then it won't matter so much. But stuff like, I also said walnuts, walnut farmers, they will not plant a walnut seed that's scratched because the tree will grow messed up. Now you know. Yud Aleph, azay is eich in der minion von Chinuch. Same thing when it comes to education of the child. A mensch in die Mitteljahren, was schon durchgegangen Hälfte weg von sein Welt und meint, als is gezwungen zu gehen auf Pshares, rührt das ihm an mehr nicht wie auf etliche Jahr. A person who's already middle-aged, he's already been in the world for half of his time in the world, and he thinks that he has to compromise. This is only going to affect him for a certain amount of years. 40 Jahre hat gelebt on Psharis. For 40 years, let's say, he lived without compromise. Is vet nichshel und macht a Pshara of a Jahr. So if he will make compromise for a year, like he'll become kind of bummy for a year in one area, können ihm geben koyach die freudige 40 Jahre, was hat hinter sich, but he still has the 40 years behind him where he was doing, when he was stark and he was doing it good. So bald zurück vergessen auf die Pshara und halten sich bei schleimestige Yiddishkeit. He can get back on track. He can say, you know what, I don't like this half-baked way that I was doing it. I want to go back to the full force. And it will just be like a little aberration, like a little deviation. And he can get back on track pretty good. B'shas aber es handelt sich wegen a jungen Dor, But when you're talking about the young generation, und sie will men der ziehen auf Pshadas, and you want to raise them with compromise from the very beginning, nimmt man bei sie zu die Warmkeit und Kneus in Yiddishkeit auf den ganzen Leben. You're removing from them the warmth and the zealousness of Yiddishkeit for their entire life. If a middle-aged guy gets exposed to some lame, corner-cutting Yiddishkeit, yeah, it'll mess him up for a short time, but he can get back on track. A kid who's exposed to that kind of corner cutting has a lifelong effect. Über dem Kritz mit Nichsarin, was man macht in sehr Neshama, in sehr jungt, ist recht, als der noch soll Rachmona litzlan auswachsen, a verkrippelter Yid, a Balmum. The little scratch that was done to the kid could cause that he'll grow up a balmum. He'll be disfigured. He'll grow up spiritually disfigured. Good base. Amistaka alpi afal pishachata Yisrael. Now, af pishachata Yisrael, even someone who sins, he's still a yid. That's the Gemara in Sanhedrin. As his aber, listen, it's not saying the guy loses everything. He's still a yid. Es ist aber voran Azav, was die Gemara sagt auf Mesechus Sanhedrin, Ochratu be'elam hazeh. But there's the same Gemara, same sugya, Gemara Sanhedrin. It's actually daf earlier. It says there's certain people that you say to them, you're going to have a very not nice life, an ugly life in this world. Der Glück is was men hatem bewahren mit elam haba. Now, fortunately, he's still kol Yisrael yesh lam chelik le'elam haba. He's still going to have a portion in elam haba, but he's messing up his life in this world. Wir dürfen aber haben a jungen Dor Yidden be'elam hazeh. We need to have a young generation of Yidden in this world. Be'elam hazeh. We need to have a young generation of Yidden in this world. So don't tell me, okay, well, it all come out in the wash. Eventually, in Elam Haba, he'll be okay. No. We need it in Elam Hazeh. Sie sollen sein gesunder Yidden. They should be healthy Jews. Lebedige Yidden, Beruchnias. Spiritually vivacious Jews. Memela gesunde Yidden und lebedige Yidden begashmias. And then automatically they will also be alive and vital in the physical sense as well. Und der, flip the page. Und damit wollen sie kennen, einnehmen dem Elam Hazeh nicht nur für sich, als heilig soll sein am Mikdash für den Eibishten, nur euch für den Mittleren und Älteren da. And then they will be able to conquer the world, not just that for themselves, to make a sanctuary for Hashem, but they'll also do this for the middle-aged and elder generations. Yeah, well, Mikdash, making the world into a Mikdash for Hashem means Mashiach. Yeah. Okay. Yud Gimel. Okay. All right. No. This is still the same Sicha. We're still going. Okay. All right. Yud Gimel. All right. Passing through just like you. You think they'll let me do a duet? It's not called a duet. What's it called? A trio? Yeah. You think they'll let me do a trio? Yud Gimel. What? As seine Veran. Oh, that's what you just. They were saying song lyrics. Seine Fragen, seine Pratim, welche weisen sich aus in Flug, als sie seine nicht so viel Negeia. Und als das ist mir nicht wie a Chutaseide. Certain things seem trivial. They seem just like a hair. Just a little hair's breadth. Come on, don't make yourself crazy over that. It's not such a big deal. Aber es kann doch sein, als das ist der Chutaseide, auf welche die Gemara sagt, als davon wächst aus der ganze Yetzirah, was Rishayim nidme lehem kechutaseide. But it could be this little hair's breadth, this is the hair's breadth from which develops the entire Yetzer Hara, entire evil inclination, which the Gemara says that Hashem see it like, it's just a hair, it's nothing. Yeah, well, that's how it starts. How's it even possible that a Yid becomes a Rasha? God forbid. A Yid will doch mekayim sein, dem Eibishten's Ratzon. Every Yid wants to do Hashem's will. Wie kommt das, soll dann Sachen, was sie seinen gegen dem Eibishten bis zu werden angerufen Rasha? How's it even possible that a Yid would do things against Hashem's will to the extent that this Yid would be called a Rasha? How does that even happen? So we can explain how it happens. It's the slippery slope. That's how it happens. The self-deception. That's how it happens. It's the rationalization of compromises. That's how it happens. Nur das kommt von dem, was nicht mal hem gechut aside. It comes from the fact he sees it as a little hair's breadth. Es ducht sich eis, as das is a Kleinigkeit. It looks like a triviality. Und amol can passieren, as das is taka Kleinigkeit. Sometimes it is taka a little thing. Aber in sein Maimer Matzav, in welcher steht, can die Kleinigkeit machrier sein. But in his situation, that little thing can actually tip him over the edge. Oder soll sein a Tzadik und nicht v'nichtam während l'chai elam. Oder Rachmana litzlan a Rasha, was auf sagt, der Pasuk, lidroin elam und über was über dem chutasayro. And in that tipping point could either bring him to be a tzaddik who is written and sealed for life, or to be someone who, to use the language from Daniel, the book of Daniel, that he will be in the eternal shame. He'll be set up for eternal shame, God forbid. And what did he do it over? A little hair's breadth, a little triviality. Stark, aber hat nicht bei sich genug Starkheit und genug Seichel aufkennen, unterscheiden sie, das ist der Prat, in welches hängt ab sein Mahus, ist in itztedicke Zeiten, was der Emes wird alle Männes bar, ist da die Havchana von dem Tzad Shekeneged. This is such a powerful paragraph. If he doesn't have enough strength and enough brains to distinguish what is that detail upon which his entire being depends, meaning it's a little thing, but it's this little thing that will have a huge ripple effect. So in the current times, when is this Sicha from? That I was speaking in the 1950s. This is Leil Ner Gimel de Chanukah Tavshin Yud Dalet. So this is the winter of 1953. And the Rebbe is saying, in these times, everything's becoming more clear. That emes ver als mer nisbarer. The truth is becoming more clear in these times. Such an interesting description. It's the dicke Zeiten, in the current times, that emes ver als mer nisbarer. Truth is becoming more clear. Is da die Havchana von dem Tzad Shekeneged. So here's the way to get sort of clarity about about the antagonistic side, the other side, the opposition. Yeah, it's so interesting. So I try not to do too many sidebars here, but perhaps in the past, the dangers to Yiddishkeit were more subtle and easier to be deceived by. An example, I don't know, like, just off the top of my head, the Chassam Sofer fought that there should be yeshivas that only learn halacha because he felt that it would pull people away from learning Gemara and it would actually serve the purposes of the Enlightenment. And these were supposed to be from yeshivas, but he saw it as a slippery slope that would take people away from Gemara and ultimately destroy authentic Yiddishkeit. But it took a Chassam Sofer to know that wasn't a good idea. Okay? So there are things that, like, perhaps in the past where it was a little bit more difficult to detect that this thing was dangerous. Now it's not as hard to detect because everything's becoming more and more clear, and everything's becoming more pronounced, and everything's becoming more identifiable, and everything's sort of just separating and in some ways becoming extreme. And now it's like, we know who you are, we know what you want, we know what you think of us, we know what you're trying to do. Thank you at least for being clear about it. That's what's happening. And that I was saying this in the 50s, how much more so in 2020s, I think we see this. That everything's sort of separating and coming out in a very clear way. Beshas men zet wie der Tzadke keneged stellt sich mit dieser Starkheit, als es recht verlieren Millionen mit Geld. Okay, listen, this is so interesting. So the Rebbe says, look at the opposition. Now, who is the opposition? I'm not even sure, like, who this is describing. Like, what groups, what organizations, what subculture is this describing? I'm not sure even. But the Rebbe says, you look at the Tzad Shekeneged, the opposition, and you see that they're presenting themselves with such strength, such intensity, that it's possible they will lose millions of dollars, like they will throw away millions of dollars. Farlir and Kamavakama mention, they will lose many, many people. Like, I guess, like, they'll alienate many, many people. Und so werden Stütze von aller Seiten. They will lose support from many, many sides. Aber nicht noch zu geben a kleinem Prat. All just to not have to give in over some minor detail. So the Rebbe says, look at the opposite side, the opposition. They are ready to sacrifice money and people and support so that they don't have to compromise on a small matter. Was es is legabre nit verstandig in seichel. In fact, it's illogical. It doesn't make sense that they do that. Is das havchana und eira for uns. But that is a lesson for us. We should learn from that. As men tor nit noch geben a filo at dem prat, was men will uns anreden, as das is mehr nit wie a kleine prat. We should not give in over even that little thing that we're told is a triviality. Val das is arksa de mesane. This is the sandal strap. What is that talking about? You look in the footnote, Sanhedrin, Ayin Daled base, 74b. It's talking about at the time of Shmad, when, God forbid, historically it's speaking about the Roman persecution, but a time of Shmad, a time of persecution, when there is a war against Yiddishkeit. So the whole sugya there is talking about things that you're allowed to compromise if you're being threatened, especially if it's a life and death matter, things you're not allowed, the famous 3 cardinal sins that you're not allowed to compromise even to save your life. But then it says that it could be a case where there's an act of war to undermine Yiddishkeit, and in that case, even if there's a certain sandal strap that's considered fashionable by the non-Jews, that we won't give in and wear that sandal strap because it's what it represents, because we're in precarious times and we have to hold strong. So it could be that this little thing is a little thing, but it's the sandal strap b'shas gzeres hishmad during this time of persecution. Und das ist der Chutta Seide, in welches hängt up sie in Verlauf von der Zeit, wenn wird bleiben a Yid. And this is the hair's breadth that with the passage of time you're going to see. This is what his whole remaining Jewish is dependent upon. So it seems like a triviality, but really it's going to undermine and destabilize his entire future as a Jew. Yud Dalet. A weite dicke Beweis auf dem, wie der Chutta Seide is Negeia, sieht man davon, was die ganze Zorre zu welcher man ist zugekommen, hat sich angeheben, wieder es all sagen, Kol ha-mechanef lechavere, oder wie die zweite Girse, Kol ha-mechanef le-rasha, ein Girse is in Gemara, und einer is in Yankiv, le-seif neifel b'yadei. Another indication, another teaching regarding this little matter that you might want to compromise about is connected to what the sages say. And there's two versions of it. One version is in Gemara and the other version is in Yankiv. The Gemara, the version of the Gemara is if you flatter someone, anyone, the Yankiv says if you flatter a wicked person, but either way, the end of the sentence is you will end up falling into their hands. So the person that you try to flatter, ostensibly, they talk about like trauma responses, what they call the fight, flight, or freeze, or fawning, right? So the fawning is the flattering. Fawning is, oh, maybe I can appease this person, get them to like me, butter them up. Okay, so the Gemara says, when you go to butter someone up, it's not going to actually end well for you. They're going to end up hurting you, God forbid. Men hat gesehen, in die letzte Jahren, als die alle was seinen, flip the page please, to 84, gegangen mit Jahren zurück auf Pscharis und haben gemeint, als durch dem wollen sie einnehmen dem Jungen dort. We see, the Rebbe says, so this is in the 50s, that all those who have the approach that will compromise in order to win over the youth, in parentheses, trachtendig as die, was men hat schon in frommen Zad, wollen sie sei wie bleiben ganz. We make the calculation, those who are already religious are going to stay religious. And what are we going to do for those who are not yet religious? We're going to have to make compromises for them. Hat man gesehen, beschein perlich, als nicht nur was men hat verloren die Jugend, was men hat sie gewollt führen auf den Weg von Pscharis. Not only, we see clearly, we have enough, the data is in, that not only do we lose those who we were trying to attract with watered down Yiddishkeit, nor man hat reingebracht a Schwachkeit euch in die Jugend, was seinen Gewinn unter sehr Aschba und gehalt sich in ganzen fromm. But it also weakened those who were religious and were influenced by those who were raised with a compromised Yiddishkeit. So the calculation was, those who are already religious, they're fine. Those who are not yet religious, let's give them some compromises. And that did not work out as planned. What happened is, those who were exposed to the compromises certainly were not helped, and they even landed up hurting others. So the Rebbe is saying this is like the flattery. The flattery, you try to appease someone, you try to make friends, and not saying not to be nice to people. Obviously be nice to people. But the point is, out of fear, trying to appease someone out of fear never works. Die aber, was seinen gegangen mit 10, 15 oder 20 Jahren zurück mit der Schitte, als Mentor nicht noch geben, kein Prat, befragt in Chinuch, die haben Matzlich gewähnt. But those who, if you go back 10, 15, 20 years, so the Rebbe is counting from the 50s. He's saying those who back in the 40s or the 30s were already fighting the good fight and saying we don't compromise, those people have been successful. Like the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he came to America in Tav Shin in 1940, he said, America's nicht anders. We're not making any compromises. No, we're not modifying. This is not Judaism with training wheels. This is the full-on, intense, classic version. And that's what succeeds. And those who try to make an Americanized version, an adapted version of Yiddishkeit, it was a disaster. Tezvav. Atosefes Koach in dem Chinuch HaKosher geben rein die alle, was sein in sich misasik in Chinuch HaKosher begufem b'mishnosum und die alle, was helfen in dem mit sehr Geld. Okay, so now the Rebbe is speaking, I mean, this is a Chanukah verbringen, but you have to imagine at this verbringen, there were people there who were not necessarily chassidim. Maybe they were supporters of the yeshivas. So the Rebbe says all of those who are devoted to proper Jewish education, they're devoted with their body and with their soul and with giving money. Men kommt zu gehen zu und men sagt, Herr Zechain. Now, they might come to you, the Rebbe is sort of like warning them. Someone's going to come to you, it could come to you and say, was hast du sich eingespart geben die Geld in a yeshiva was wird aushaden batlonim? Why are you giving money to a yeshiva that's producing, how are we going to translate batlonim? Losers? Like, how do you want to translate it? Like, that's not, later is not a translation, that's weiter. So this is what you're producing. You're producing a bunch of non-productive people. Ois hadden Menschen was haben nicht kein Scheiches zu Vayeishev Yaakov. You're producing people who have no connection to normal life. Der Weg geht mit der wird gehen mit der board. This guy's going with a beard. I remember a Verbrengen once. Shalom Gordon, although Shalom was saying that when he was in Brownsville in the 30s, that the only beard, he said they used to call him Smith Brothers cough drops. Because he said the only beard on a man that anyone ever saw was the picture of the Smith Brothers on the Smith Brothers cough drop box. Okay. Der wird gehen mit der Board, der mit der Kapotte. This guy's going with a beard, this guy's going with a Kapotte, with a long coat. Und du wirst sein der Geirem. And you, sir, you are giving money to this yeshiva. You're the cause of Eis hadden Menschen, was beschaß sie wollen rausgehen in der Welt, wollen sie nicht wissen, wie kehrt an sich. And you're producing these people who are going to go into the world and not know how to handle themselves. So then I was warning them, you're going to get harassed. You're going to get harassed. Von deswegen hat in sich die Starkheit auf nicht nispolvern und adrabe. Nevertheless, you're not going to get intimidated. And to the contrary, von dem Gufa lernt ab a Heira, wie bald man setzt sich an auf so viel. Und man will abreißen von dem, is a heichacha as dafke da liegt der Emes und dafke da liegt der Hatzola von Am Yisrael. The fact that people are trying so hard to tear you away from this is itself a proof that this is how the salvation of the Jewish people will come. Bemele is nit nor was verkleinert nit sein Arbeit. So not only does he not decrease his work, that not only does he not decrease his work that he's doing for kosher chinuch, that he's doing with his body and soul and his money, or he's doing with all three, could be one of the three, two of the three, or all three. But to the contrary, mit der Gresse Starkheit, now he's doing even more. So if people come and harass you, why are you supporting this yeshiva that's producing these people who can't succeed in the world? That should not only not discourage you, it should encourage you. Das geht der Starkheit dem Jungen der Gufa, and this itself strengthens the youth. So the Rebbe is telling these supporters, who are, I don't know how religious they are or not, but they're supporting the yeshivas. So the Rebbe says, first of all, people are going to harass you, and you're not going to be discouraged, you're going to be encouraged. You're going to know that's a sign you're doing the right thing. But also, the Rebbe says, you should know when you support the yeshivas, this actually encourages the bachram who are learning. It encourages the youth. B'shas men fragt bei zeh a shaila. Eure Chaveren bekommen euch a jüdische Chinuch, aber on Knois und on Dikdukim. Wo steht das, als darf seine die Mehadrim? People are going to ask these youth. Listen, there are other youth, your peers, who are receiving a Jewish education without knos, without zealotry, without dikdukim, without being so super meticulously observant. Where does it say that you guys have to be the Mahadrim, that you have to be so meticulous? Weisen sie on, Ot is da a Secher, was halt mit uns. The youth are going to actually be emboldened, and they're going to answer, hey, look, there's a businessman who supports us. Ot is da Gvir, was halt mit uns. There's a rich man who supports us. A Rav, was halt mit uns. This guy's a rabbi. An alter Yid oder a Freu, was halt mit uns. There's an elder man or woman who supports us. Is das gibt sie a Starkheit auf durchgehende Nisyenis, was sie haben in their Dalanamis, and this strengthens them to deal with their challenges that they have in their private world. So that I was telling these people who are supporting the Moistais, you should know it's not just your money, it's what you represent. And the fact that you're aligned with our cause, the youth are very much aware of it, and it encourages them and it gives them strength to respond to the detractors. Und der Yashikoyach kommt zu die, was lernen mit die Talmidim. Now that I was talking about the people who learn with the Talmidim, so the first was like the supporters, now is the Mashpiyim. Und werden nicht nispol von Nisyenis. These people learn with the students, and they are also not intimidated. Und seine Mamshich in dem derech HaChinuch, and they continue teaching this style that we've been talking about. Und sie die Askoni HaChinuch was now we're flipping to I think another category, the Askonim. What do you call the Askonim? You have the supporters, and you have the Mashpiyim, and you have the Askonim. Was a Jalavin Minishmosim, they're not stingy with giving their soul, Megufim, their body, Mamainam, and giving their wealth. Und geben wie viel sie kennen, they give as much as they can. B'meshach hazman wollen sie mistama geben jesmik wie yecholtem. And in fact, they end up giving more even than their ability. They overextend themselves. Abi aufzuhalten dem Chinuch al taras hakedish b'yiras shamayim tahira, as long as they're able to continue to support proper education, pure education. Next page, flip the page, 85, the last page. Tez Zion, we're almost done. B'shas man stellt sich weg auf dem Weg von Chinuch, Chanukah lenar al pi darkei an kein Pshareis. Wie der Rav, als es ist gegeben geworden, Chanukah, als man hat nicht gewollt afilu kulais ausgehalten al pi Shulchan. So when we educate children in the manner of Chanukah, which like we said, we don't rely even on legitimate loopholes. Remember we said at the beginning of the Sicha, halachically it would have been acceptable to use non-pure oil. Under those circumstances, it would have been okay to use non-pure oil. And we didn't do it. We refused to do it, and Hashem actually made a miracle to enable us not to have to do it. So when we have that approach, that we don't even rely on legitimate loopholes, men hat gesagt, as men will haben a Ness, warum wir willen haben am Mikdash Taher, am Neira Tahira, und Shemen Taher. We need to have a miracle in order to, like in the Chanukah story, in order to have, because we want to have a pure sanctuary, a pure menorah, a pure oil. B'meila vet die Lichtigkeit euch sein azay, and therefore the light will also be pure. Is azay wie damals hat der Eibishter geholfen, also b'meshach a kurze Zeit is gewend der Nesato von die alle Chalukes biyad oiskeit seira secha. Just like in those days, Hashem gave over, meaning delivered into the hands of the Torah learners. Remember in the Alanism, it talks about that the the many were delivered into the hands of the few, and so on and so forth. So that just like then, where the greater opposition was delivered into the hands of the few, und men hat mechanech gewend dem Beis HaMikdash mit der selchen Neres, was sie leichten uns bis heint. And then we lit the menorah in such a way that it remains lit until today. Remember, the Chanukah menorah remains lit even during Golus. Als afilu, wenn die Sonne geht unter, wenn offen Gas wird finster und noch finster, ist in jüdische Häuser lichtig und meise verheilig. Even when it's dark outside. And I don't think it means literally dark outside, although, yes, we light the menorah at night, which is part of the symbolism. But even when the world is getting darker and darker, the Jewish homes are more and more bright. Jede Nacht wird die Lichtigkeit größer. And every night we add more, like Beis Hillel. So just like Hashem did miracles for our fathers in those days, so to today. We can be sure that very soon in our days we will merit. There's going to come down the built, pure and built Mikdash. Men darf men nicht wie zugreiten da an Ort wo wegstellen hem. We only have to prepare an area, a place where to set it up. We don't have to build it. It's already built. It's coming down. Ready. We just have to clear the space. Und jüdische Kinder, jüdische Jiden von Mittleren dort und von Älteren dort. And then all the Jewish people, the youth and the middle age and the elders. Weil machen lichtig dem Beis HaMikdash mit der Welt darum sei. They're going to illuminate the Beis HaMikdash and the whole world around it. Nicht nur mit der Ner Shal Mitzvah allein, not just with a Ner Mitzvah. Nor euch mit a Ner Toher Betachlis vi Kodesh Betachlis. Not just a Ner Mitzvah, but a Ner that is pure in the ultimate sense and holy in the ultimate sense. Meaning to say there are levels, but we will light a candle which is pure and holy in the ultimate, highest, most perfect sense. And this will draw down Hashem's Shechina into this world, into the Tachtenim Mamish, really into the physical world. As the Elam Hazeh was is given bizitz der Chumri, that this physical world, which until now was a Chumri or a Gashmi. Chumri means more crass. Gashmi is like physical as opposed to spiritual. Chumri is like even more crass, like where the physicality becomes a source of pleasure unto itself. So the world, which until now had been a chumri, or at the very least a gashmi, that same world, that Verena Beis HaMikdash l'Shechinasei Yisbarach, is going to become, the whole world's going to become a house, a holy house for Hashem's Shechina. End of the Sicha. Okay, amazing. Shakaya, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll end the stream. Okay.